Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for your patience and understanding this morning. Of course, life happens. And I mean, even if we were just meeting up for a coffee, this kind of would still happen. So it's very interesting when we go live. So today I have Rob Michael here. And Rob, I will let you do a quick intro for yourself.
Sure. So my name is Rob Michael, former former auto mechanic, former journeyman electrician, turned instrumentation tech, turned uh, compressed air tech, and spent pretty much my entire professional career in industrial service in one way, shape, or form. And for the last decade or so, that has been focused on compressed air.
Nice. Nice. So I want to keep this, we try to keep it 20, 30 minutes. So we'll see. And I know you have a lot of things. I've been following you for quite a while now on LinkedIn. So I'm very excited to have you on the show today. Um, and we're going to touch on a couple of different things. I know the episode is called The Repair Gap, but I think that entails a lot more than just physically repairing compressed air. So I'm excited to touch on everything. The first where I want to start first was I remember scrolling and I saw one of your posts that was like the parts canon, and then you had another one where you give some examples of some cases that you see, and you say, "Okay, everybody, go ahead." And then when people just start listing components or parts that you kind of are like, "Okay, we need to do something else here." So my first question is that that's so how do you properly diagnose a process in compressed air with like before you start listing parts like you called out?
Right. So, and I think on those particular posts, um, there's a misunderstanding at some level where I think some guys are thinking, okay, what could be the problem here?
Mhm,
Like what component could have failed here?
mhm.
And if you notice in those posts, I never ask, what do you think's wrong? I always ask, what's your next move?
Okay.
Because if you go right from I see symptom A, therefore part A, B, or C has failed. Well,
Mhm.
you're skipping a critical part of the diagnostic process. And a good diagnostic process, like anything else, I mean, any decision making process in life, it's an OODA loop, OODA, observe, orient, decide, act. And that OODA loop just replays over and over again until you arrive at a conclusion. So you're observing what the symptoms are, you are orienting yourself to best be able to test not only your assumptions, but test what you think may be going on with the machine. You make a decision, okay, I'm going to perform test A. And then as you are acting, you're starting that loop right over again with observation. And
Okay.
that OODA loop just repeats until you can arrive at a safe conclusion. And the other thing, and we may touch on this later on, but the other thing where people get hung up is you have to diagnose at the component level, but you repair at the system level.
Okay.
And so, like I said, I think we'll get into some of that later on.
Yes, yes, we will. So we'll leave it at that for now.
Perfect.
So going back to this OODA, I've actually never heard that particular acronym before. So say you get a call, there's something going on. When you walk into a compressor room, what are the first three things that you evaluate before you touch anything?
So there's not so much a checklist that, oh, I check this. It's more just, it's don't walk in with blinders on. Um, a lot of
Okay.
times, as technicians, we show up and the customer says, I'm having a problem with this machine, or I'm here to do a service on this machine. And we put the blinders on and we're looking at that machine and that machine only.
Mhm.
When really, when you walk into that compressor room, everything should be on, eyes wide open,
Mhm.
ears wide open. Um, put your hands on everything. Obviously, nothing rotating, but put your hands on everything. Um, you know, one of the first things when I walk in, I'm listening. Like, what's going on? Because the air compressors will talk to you. They'll tell you what's going on. They'll tell you that, oh, I've got a motor bearing going out, or there's a VSD machine that's constantly ramping up and down. There's a fixed speed machine that's constantly loading and unloading,
Mm-hmm.
and it's being aware of those kinds of things. Or there's a condensate drain valve that's stuck open, and you can hear it over at the oil water separator. It's things like that. Walking in, big eyes, big ears, pay attention to what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah, I like that. So that goes right into kind of where I wanted to touch on, that in your opinion, what separates a technician who understands these full systems and one who just has a understanding of the components?
Right. And so that kind of goes back to diagnose at the component level, repair at the system level.
Mm-hmm.
I would say most of your average compressed air technicians out there, I'll use the example of, say, a failed load controlled solenoid valve. Most of your technicians out there could properly diagnose that. They can run the test. They can say, okay, we've got a failed solenoid valve.
Mm-hmm.
And probably the vast majority of technicians that diagnose that failed solenoid valve would then write it up to get a new load control solenoid, replace it, go about their day. The problem you run into there is a lot of times you're going to end up with a callback in a week, 3 weeks, a month, whatever, where that end user is either having the same problem or a new problem that is presenting in the same way. And what it is we've got this new load control solenoid valve on here, but the inlet valve, the blowdown valve, the shuttle valve, all these things all have the same number of cycles on them as that load control solenoid did. And had we repaired at the system level and said, okay, this load control solenoid is part of this control system that we should address, and therefore not only establish a reputation for ourselves as fixing these things on the first try, establishing a reputation for our company, for the machines that we represent as being reliable, rather than having to come back 4 or 5 times to address each individual component when we could have just hit it all right from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there are some technicians I have this conversation with, and they're like, well, the customer's not going to pay for all that. And I'm like, I've been doing this, like I said, over a decade now, and it is rare that I will tell a customer, hey, this component is what failed, but we should address this at a system level to prevent, future downtime, future problems. Vast majority of customers are like, yeah, do it. Every once in a while, you'll get that guy who's like, nope, just replace what failed. And you go, well, okay, see you in a few weeks.
Oh my gosh, that sounds like me when I go to the car mechanic. I'm like, don't look at anything else, please.
Right.
Just,
Don't touch
just,
anything
just
else.
the oil. Oh my
But
gosh.
working at that level, and I mean, I'm not shy about the fact that, we're in compressed air sales and service. We are a business entity that exists to make money. I'm not shy about that.
Yeah.
So when you do repairs at the system level, not only are you generating more revenue, but you're actually generating a more positive experience for that end user, because, like I said, you've now established yourself and your company as a reputation of, we fix things on the first try.
Mhm.
And because we don't wait for these other individual components to fail, we don't come back 5, 6 times to address the
Mhm.
same issue. Our machines now, in the end user's eyes, are extremely reliable. And that's what everybody wants, right?
Mhm.
Reliability and efficiency. That's what everybody wants.
Yeah. Yeah. And I agree with you that even calling it out up front, like you don't have to be shy that your company is there to make money. It is a business, but they also understand that and appreciate it because you're keeping their system that's making what they sell run. Like they
Right,
also can't sell anything if it doesn't run. So they deeply
right.
understand. And I love that you said that because a lot of people shy away from that. especially even being in sales or being representatives for your company going out there. If you're shy about, your cost, but we see it every day. It's part of our everyday lives. When you go to the store, you can choose, even for your food, you can choose a higher quality food or a low grade science experiment food. That's it's
Right.
50 cents.
And,
So like
and
we
there
see it everywhere.
there's going to be repercussions for that are
Yeah.
not reflected in the price.
Yes.
And
Yes,
it's
exactly.
the same way. Um, years ago when I had my business down in the Carolinas, I was not shy about letting customers know that, hey, if you want the bare minimum, I'm not your guy. Like we're not going to get along. You need to
Hmm.
go find you need to go find a fly by night service company that only wants to do the bare minimum, and they're going to charge you the bare minimum, and you
Hmm.
guys will be happy.
Yeah.
And I wasn't shy about that.
Hmm.
I would rather be upfront about that and not do business with that person who I know we're not going
Right.
to have a good relationship than try to
Hmm.
force it because I need every dollar of revenue I can get, and it ends up
Right.
just being a stressful situation for everyone.
Hmm.
Um, and even with Cummins Wagner, I'm kind of the same way. I'm like, look, we're a high level service company. We charge a premium price because we deliver a premium service. And if that's not what
Hmm.
you want, feel free to go elsewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. I fully agree on that. Um, yeah, I love that we touched on that. So going back into the compressed air roll, because we can have a whole nother show on just that,
Right,
really.
right,
Um,
right.
and so you mentioned this solenoid valve. So going back towards to that last point, what is a quick fix that usually creates a bigger long-term problem? So I don't know if that was just one example or if that's the example, and we can skip this
No,
question.
no. So I actually just posted about this not too long ago. Um, the quick fix in a compressor room that I absolutely hate is floor dry,
Okay.
or or as I like to call it, maintenance guy stop leak. Because it seems like the maintenance guys in the plants think that when they throw floor dry down, it stops the oil leak, and it doesn't. It just masks it for a little while. But
Okay.
the reason why is, so the thing that triggered that maintenance guy to come look at that air compressor in the first place is that it shut down. Right, it was shut down
Mhm.
on high temperature. Maintenance guy goes in, sees the oil all over the floor, says, "Oh crap, we got an oil leak." Throws the floor dry down, tops off the oil, gets it running again because production's down. Production's king. We got to make the products, right?
Mhm.
So now, throughout the course of the night, the weekend, whatever it is, this machine is going to run hot and shut down repeatedly. They're going to throw more floor dry down, add more oil to the machine, and keep running it because we got to hit this production number before we can take the machine down and let the service guys come in and do their thing.
Mhm.
All right. So then what happens is finally we've got our run of X number of thousands of products done. We can take a breather. We can get some maintenance done. We can get this oil leak addressed. So they call the service company in. Service tech shows up, says, "Oh, this O-ring right here failed." He puts a new O-ring in it. He goes down the road. The problem is there is a large gray area where the oil in the machine begins to break down
Mhm.
and the machine shuts down on high temp. There's about a 20 to 25 degrees, sometimes more, gray area where that machine can sit and run for a very long time. And it's damaging the oil, it's damaging the internal components of the machine. But because
Okay.
the technician doesn't think at a system level, he replaces the leaking O ring, the leaky gasket, whatever, and he goes
Mhm.
on his way. An oil change at minimum should have been part of that repair because that oil has now been heat skanked over and over and over again. And by the time you get to the point where you're shut down on high temp, you've probably got about a 30% oil charge in that machine. So now we
Mhm.
top it off and we're like, oh, it's 70% new. That's great. No, that 30% that's still in there contaminates the 70% and brings it down faster. So now degradation is happening at even faster at even lower temperatures, and it's going over and over and over again. And before you know it, if you're running like a PAO oil in there, for example, when you heat up a PAO, it varnishes, and now the whole inside of that machine, the coolers, everything is getting varnished. And if the technician comes and does the repair, but doesn't change the oil, well, that skanked oil is still in there. It's still doing damage. It's still leaving varnish deposits, and you've basically done an incomplete repair.
Interesting.
Now, the one caveat I'll give to that is if it's silicone oil, you're good. No need to change it. Silicone doesn't break down at high temps. Um, Even your polyglycol oils, they handle heat a little bit better than your PAOs do. If it's a PAO, which most oils are, yeah,
Mm,
you get above that 215, 220 degree mark for any length of time, you're putting varnish all through that cooling system.
interesting. I'm gonna have to take your word on this one because I don't get into oil at all.
most of
At
us
all.
most of us don't, but um,
Yeah.
yeah, it was something that lubricant became something that my ADHD brain hyper focused on for a few months, and I was just like reading everything I could find
Mhm.
and learning everything about it, and yeah, now that it's in there, it's in there.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm sure you could probably go back to old cases and say, "Man, this was probably it," because now you learned. I love it. I love it. So if we switch gears a tiny bit again, uh,
Sure.
you talk about programming controllers on your LinkedIn, and how they act as like kind of, if we say, the brain of the compressor room. What is the biggest misunderstanding there that you see?
um, I think that sales and service both, we really don't understand what these controllers are capable of. um, Even your most basic microprocessor controllers have some pretty cool capabilities built into them right from the factory, and most of us just don't really understand how to leverage it properly. And of course, different controllers give you different levels of sophistication. um, I mean, there are some controllers out there that you can literally log into them with proprietary software, and you can write all of your own inputs, outputs, whether they be discrete, analog, whatever. And those are the ones that can really serve as the brain of the air compressor room. Those are the ones where you can drive exhaust fans based on element outlet temperature. um, your variable speed drive on your heat exhaust fan is going to run higher the hotter the element gets. um, Things like that, where you can really bring things in and tie things together. And then you have other, I mean, most, I'm not going to say all, but I'm going to say most air compressor controllers are Modbus capable right out of the box. And it really makes it very easy for a systems integrator to come in and work alongside you and
Mhm,
take whatever information they need to get from that compressor controller and use it to do
mhm,
other things in the compressor room, whether it's running exhaust fans, opening louvers, I mean, whatever. Like, you're literally limited by your imagination at that point. And it's very, very, very helpful that most of these controllers you can Modbus right into them. And at that point, every piece of data in that controller becomes readable for the integrator. So there's literally nothing they can't see. And once you have the data, what you do with it is really, you're only limited by your imagination.
mhm. Very nice. So we're coming up close to 20 minutes, but I do still have four more questions that I really want to touch on. So we'll
All right,
we'll keep
I'll
it,
try
we'll
to
keep it
I'll
moving.
try to be short. I'll try to be short-winded.
That's all right. Hey, that's okay. I mean, if people need to run and come back, we can do that too. Because I really like these last couple questions, and so I won't try to do like a smoother transition or anything, because I want to
Sure,
hop right
sure.
into them. Because you've been doing this for a long time, and you've trained apprentices, and worked with a lot of seasoned techs. So I'm very curious, what do you think is harder to teach, technical skill or accountability?
Accountability, hands down. Um, as I've said many, many times, I can give you all the technical knowledge in the world, but the
Mhm,
one thing I can't teach you is how to care. And If you don't care about what you're doing, you're here for the paycheck and that's it. Um, then hey, that's all the better you're ever going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Personally, I was having a conversation with my good friend John Davidson the other day about, when you walk into an air compressor room, you have to own everything in there, like it's yours. Um, and so when you come behind, like one of the things that I do is coming behind the competition and kind of checking them on things, because you're trying to get that business. So you offer that free checkup or whatever. Well, you're going through that compressor room picking your competition apart. And John and I are both the same way. When I see bad service, I get angry. Like I take it personally. When I go in there and I can see that this 4,000-gallon tank is full of water because the current service provider has not been checking the condensate drain, I get angry about that. And it's a hard thing to instill that in another person. They have to kind of come to that point by themselves. And
Mm-hmm.
but the guys that do get to that point, I mean, man, they become unstoppable.
Yeah. Is there some kind of, I don't know if you want to call it a trick or something that you do when you see this, or do you just kind of write it off like, hey, I can't help you if you don't want to help yourself kind of thing? Just as from a leadership perspective, like, do you have any, I don't know if you want to call them tips or hacks or whatever.
um, Sometimes you just have to have what I call the potential conversation, which
Okay.
is, just sitting down with somebody and just being like, look, you're an incredibly smart dude or
Hmm.
gal or whatever. You've got a lot of potential to do really well here, but it seems like you don't care. And that's what's holding you back.
Hmm.
And I can say, for me, I know I said I'd be short-winded here, but quick story time. Um, so for me, I'd been in the compressed air world about 2 years or so, and I was a fairly competent technician. Not great, not horrible. I could hold my own on most things, but
Hmm.
my biggest detriment was my attitude. I just was like, whatever. I'm here for the paycheck. I don't really care.
Hmm.
And so it was like one of those weird holidays where like Christmas fell weird, and so we ended up getting like Christmas Eve, and Christmas all off.
Yeah.
And my week to be on call, well, wouldn't you know it, is Christmas Eve, and a call comes in, and customer says, "Hey, like our plant electrician looked at this thing. He says that the fan motor's no good. We just need to get a new fan motor." And of course, the company I worked for at the time, I was like, "Well, we don't stock them, but let me see if I can find you one." Right? Got to at least do my due diligence, otherwise I'm gonna be in trouble. So I call the motor shop, fully expecting nobody's going to answer the phone.
Hmm.
And to my shock and horror, somebody did. And I'm like, crap, because I knew this was a pretty common motor. So I give them the information off the motor. Do you have this one? Yep, we got one here on the shelf, ready to go. Come pick it up. Great. So I begrudgingly call the customer back. Hey, found you a motor. I'm going to go get it. I'll be down there. We'll get it put in. And the funny thing was, it wasn't even a hard motor to change. It was like right out in the open. Like me and the plant electrician had the motor changed out in about 30 minutes. It was like no big deal.
Hmm.
But anyway, I get the motor, I get down there, we get it put on, air compressor's up and running. Yay, day saved. And I'm standing there doing my paperwork, and this guy comes up and taps me on the shoulder, and he introduces him. I couldn't remember his name to save my life now, but he introduces himself, says, "Hey, I'm so and so. I'm the shift manager here." He's like, "I just wanted to say thank you, because had you not come and got this air compressor up and running, we would have had to send all these people home today. And working this shift today is what gets these guys their Christmas bonus. If they don't work this shift, they wouldn't get their Christmas bonus."
Oh, wow.
And it was about an hour drive home, and I kind of sat with that feeling of like,
Yeah.
man, here I was all pissed off and upset. Excuse me. Here I was all mad and upset because this call came in and quote unquote ruined my day.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, I can't handle a few hour long minor inconvenience to come change a fan motor so a bunch of people can get their Christmas bonus. Like, what kind of human being am I, man? And whoops, there goes the phone. Oh, so it was kind of at that point that I kind of had this realization that, okay, there is actually a lot of meaning and a lot of value in what we
Mhm.
do here every day. And I began to feel that pretty deeply. And out of that was kind of born this desire to deliver the highest level of service I was capable of delivering.
Mhm.
And it was at that point that I really kind of made the shift from I'm just here for a paycheck to,
Yeah.
you know, this actually matters. This makes a difference to people.
Yeah.
Like, okay, like some people would be like, oh yeah, I'm not gonna cry a river because this corporation lost, you know, $30,000 an hour because they couldn't run
Mhm.
production because their air compressor was down. Well,
Yeah.
okay, what about all the people out on that production floor that are there to feed their
Mhm.
families, and now they can't, they have to go home because they can't run and they're going to miss that pay. Like,
Yes.
that affects them greatly. That
Yeah.
$30,000 or whatever that the big corporation lost, yeah,
Right.
that they're not feeling that. But that
Mhm.
person that has to miss a shift because the air compressor's down, they're feeling that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So so yeah, that kind of lit a fire in me that has only grown over time. And yeah, here we are.
Yeah. Like you said, it's easy to put the blinders on or just to be selfish and how this is gonna affect my world and my day. So I love
Right,
that story. That's an amazing, amazing story. Just to put things in perspective, I think for our entire industry, really, because compressors so important. Every single part of it, every single component. I know we're talking about the compressor room right now, but even on the demand side, if one of those lines go down, and you don't know what products they're making. I mean, we work with pharmaceutical companies and all of these different types. Like if that's something that somebody needs and now it's low in stock because of production,
right,
there's so many things that this depends on, and food and beverage, other things, that we, like you said, okay, so what? They're down and they lost some thousands of dollars. They'll be fine, but we don't see kind of on the other end of that who it affects. So
right.
I am so glad you took the time to share that story. That was very, very touching, and I think it will hopefully open up some eyes to actually how important our role is just in the entire compressed air industry. Because it's probably one of the only things that affects every industry. I mean, there's very few that it affects, and that's thousands of people working, alongside these systems. So
Right.
very, very incredible story. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure,
And
sure.
um, so you touched on leadership a little bit. So what does that look like in your specific, like in the service department? What does leadership look like there? Because of course I know what sales leadership looks like, but I feel like the service side is a little different.
Well, I mean, leadership at its core is always going to kind of be the same thing. It doesn't
Right.
matter if you're leading a service department, if you're leading a sales team,
Mhm.
if you're leading a family.
Yeah.
The core tenets of leadership really don't change. And the biggest things with those being things like um, ultimate responsibility for everything that happens is yours.
Mhm.
And good service managers recognize that. And even down to the point that if one of your guys is out in the field and does something dumb and ends up breaking something that costs some money or whatever, even though you're back in the office and he's in the field, guess what, that's still your fault. Because whose job is it to make sure that he's trained? Whose job
Mhm.
is it to make sure that he knows what he's doing when he goes out in the field every day? Like, that falls on you as a leader. And even my role out here in the field as the senior guy in the field, when I come into an air compressor room or I come onto a job, it doesn't matter who's been there already. uh,
Mhm.
as soon as my feet hit the ground, I have responsibility for everything.
Mhm.
And whether it's, safe work practices or, jobs not going right, some unexpected thing happened, and or whatever the case may be, whatever it is, there is nothing going on that site that I am not responsible for. And that's a very hard one for people to swallow, because when things go wrong, everybody wants to start doing this. And the most effective thing to do is this,
Yeah.
right? Blame lies right here. Buck stops right here. This is what we're doing to fix this problem. It's not
Mm-hmm.
your fault. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's right here.
Mm-hmm.
And leaders that grasp that and run with it do extremely well. Leaders who don't, they don't do so great.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you also build trust that way with, with your team, when, when they know that ultimately you, and I wouldn't even necessarily say that you have their back, but you're willing to come in and say, okay, instead of pointing fingers, how can we fix this? That's one of my biggest things is, if I make a mistake, which I'm doing taxes now, and I made a mistake, and my tax guy was like, who made this decision? I said, I understand it's wrong. I'm going to learn. I'm never going to do it again. But also, how do we
Right.
but also how do we fix it? So I
Right.
think that kind of ties into everything here, but then also that you're always looking to improve it.
Yeah. Well, and the hardest thing is, to share success, but then also to underwrite failure.
Hmm.
And, when things go well and the project is a success or whatever, you should be distributing that to your team. Hey, these guys did a great job. Everybody pitched in. Everybody did their role. Everybody contributed. This was great. Blah blah blah. When things don't go so good, you go, hey, that's on me. I didn't see that coming. I didn't know this was coming. This was going on, or whatever. Um, but the one thing you don't do is blame your team, right? When the project goes bad, you don't go, well, this guy wasn't doing what he was supposed to do, and this guy didn't do his job, and that guy didn't do, because guess what? Who's responsible for making sure those guys do their jobs? You are.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter if it's in the, a service department, a sales department,
Hmm.
whatever.
Hmm.
That kind of core of leadership is always the same.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that. I can see that. So we're going to do another quick flip here because I cannot not touch on this. And we so we mentioned it a little bit, tiny bit in the intro. You are extremely direct on LinkedIn and you're not shy about, calling certain things out. I don't think you do it in a way that's rude per se to any specific person, more in an educational way. And for me, this is kind of where I'm at also because I'm very active on LinkedIn. And you can go one of two ways. You can just educate and be nice and friendly and, kind of do this, or you can spark some conversations, to put it nicely, in order to have some kind of outcome. But for me, what I'm thinking is we don't have to do this. So I'm genuinely curious. Why did you decide to speak openly about any of these things when a lot of people would shy away from it?
Because I see the aftermath of bad service. I see the aftermath of um, untested assumptions, and things, the compressed air world. Um,
Hmm.
one of them being, unlike in, say, the electrical world, where
Hmm.
you have a standard, you have the National Electrical Code to come back and compare things to and say, is this right or wrong? We have no
Yeah.
such standard in the compressed air world.
Hold on one second. I did lose your video. I don't
I
know if
can't
you
hear
were
you
fixed.
now.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, something's wonky with your mic or something. I don't hear you.
Okay, well, I can hear
I
you,
can hear you. You sound like Alvin and the Chipmunks.
Okay, well, I
Um,
can't see. Maybe this is a sign nobody wants you to, somebody doesn't want you talking out anymore.
yeah, I can't hear a word. I got nothing.
Okay, let's see. Let me see. I'm gonna try to text you.
Yeah, that was crazy because it happened out of nowhere. But um, anyway, so going back to in the compressed air world, we don't have any standards, but we do have a lot of myths and a lot of assumptions that were born over time or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny to me because people get pretty emotionally charged when you start challenging their assumptions, when you start challenging the way they were taught, because they'll say, well, my grandpa Joe was an air compressor mechanic for 40 years and this is the way he taught me to do it. It's like, well, I'm sorry, your grandpa Joe may have been a very intelligent dude, but in this particular instance he's got it wrong, and here's the data that shows why he's got it wrong. Well, I don't believe that. Well, okay, I'm sorry. um, or the other thing is, I mean, sometimes it seems like people are just willingly ignorant. You can point out to them that, hey, look, if you read the OEM service manual, it says to do this way, and they go, nah, I'm not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Like, it says it right here in the OEM service manual to do it. The OEM's not out to ruin your day. The OEM is out to make sure that their machine runs as reliably as possible, because it's
Mm-hmm.
their name on the side of it. So when they say do this, you should probably do this. And so I see the aftermath of all this stuff when I come in, when I come into air compressor rooms after competitors have been there or whatever. And when I walk into when I walk in and look at an air compressor and I see oil streaks running down the side of the sump tank coming from underneath the lid, I know right then and there they didn't torque that sump lid. They ran it down with an impact and called it a day. Even though every service manual in the world says torque the separator lid bolts to this specification. And the amazing thing is, when you do that, they don't leak. So, um, but yet that's a controversial statement. When I've talked about that many times on LinkedIn, that specifically torquing sump bolt lids, and people get irate about it. Well, I've been doing this for 20 years, and I just run them down with an impact, and it's fine. And it's like, what you're basically telling me is you've gotten lucky for 20 years.
Yeah.
And the thing about luck is it runs out. And I'm sorry, but as many compressor rooms as I walk into and I see oil streaks running down the side of the sump, like,
Mm-hmm.
you may have been doing it this way for 20 years, but it hasn't been fine. You're just blind to it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's rant over.
Hey, can you hear me now?
No, no,
Okay.
I'm like, it's very vague and you sound like Alvin and the Chipmunks. So I guess you could text me the last couple of questions and I'll just
Yeah,
rip on
so
them or whatever.
we have one more. How about we go ahead and we were pretty much on the last question. Any final message you want to leave for anyone still listening?
Um, so in the vein of challenging these assumptions and challenging the way things that we've been taught over the years, because believe me, I got a lot of the same stuff too when I first got into the industry. A lot of myths, I believe, just because my senior technician told me so. And then, once you actually dig into, you know to what's actually true, you go, oh, well, that wasn't right. So to that end, I'm actually launching a coaching service for field technicians who want to up their game and get better at their craft, understand more about what they're doing, why these things are what they are, how they work together, how to do that diagnostic at the component level, but address it at the system level, and just increase technical knowledge.
Mm,
That's kind of the people I'm looking to go after, and service managers as well. If you feel like you have lost control of your service department, or your technicians are not performing at the level you want them to perform at, um, I'm really looking to come alongside those people and kind of be that coach to to get them where they want to be.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, and I'm not shy about this. I want every service technician out there getting paid the maximum amount they can get paid. I want service technicians banking. And the only way to do that is to provide more value. You provide more value through technical expertise, through learning to take ownership of your jobs, all these things we've been talking about here. Um, these are all learned skills that if you have the desire to, you can learn them. And so that's what I'm looking to do is to come alongside some people and coach at a very affordable rate. And for that rate, you not only get um, you'll get like a 1 hour phone call or video call every 2 weeks with me. I have a private Discord server where I have a ton of technical notes and information, stuff you're not really going to find doing a Google search or even in the manuals a lot of times. I've got all that in a private Discord server that you'll have access to. You can access that stuff at any time for reference, for learning, whatever. And then also within Discord, I've created like a hangout type spot. I call it the shop,
Mm-hmm.
where I might be popping in and out of there randomly, and you might be able just to get some FaceTime with me or some FaceTime with one of the other guys, other technicians in the queue or whatever, and you know, talk about what you're up against, bounce ideas off each other, bounce ideas off me. Um, through the Discord, you'll always have, you'll always be able to text me, send me pictures, send me videos. I'll weigh in, give you my opinion on things. If you're really in a tight spot, um, I'll have a couple times a month where, when you're right there in the field, we'll hop on a video call and I'll help you right there from the
Mm-hmm.
field, and we'll figure it out
Very
together.
cool.
So,
Very cool.
anybody interested in that, shoot me a DM on LinkedIn. We'll get you set up.
There you go. Well, everyone now knows where to find you. I think that would be a benefit to any guys out there willing to, like you said, step up their game, make a big difference, and make some money so they could be home with their families also and have a good Christmas.
Right. Like I said, I want technicians banking, man. And the fastest way to do that is to provide more value. The more value you provide, the more you get paid.
Amazing. Perfect. I think that is a great spot to end. Thank you, everyone who stayed with us this whole time. But it was very valuable information. Thanks so much for the conversation, Rob.
Yeah. Thank you for having me on. This was great.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
See you.